Thank you. Welcome to the meeting, everybody who showed up. We'll start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I am fast. Okay, just as a matter of information, I've got Commissioner Huxley to my left, Commissioner Boyce is on the phone, Council Huddle to my right, and John Jesuit, our administrative assistant, to the far right. So we'll start. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Madam Chair, I have one. In the audience today is Tom Calvanese from the Port of Port Orford, and he approached me over the last few days. They have a grant application due April 30th. They're looking for letters of support on the grant application. I, with Mr. Calvanese's help, prepared a draft letter for the chair's signature. There was a AGRS and a grant application, a copy of the grant application. And so I'd like, because there's no other board meeting between now and the 30th of April when their deadline for submitting the grant is, and Mr. Calvanese is here to talk about it, if you would add that to the agenda.
I would be happy to do so. I don't know about you.
I have no problem.
Okay. Commissioner Boyce? Are you okay with that?
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll put that, how about as number 5.5? How's that?
And then I also had some announcements for when the time comes.
Okay, so we'll put that before the adjournment. Any other amendments to the agenda? Okay, could I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Chair, I would motion to approve the agenda as amended.
And I'll second that. Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on, public comment. Looks like we have one person, David Barnes.
Good afternoon, David Barnes. First, I just want to express my dismay to learn, I don't know if this is true, it's what I've been reading, that you hired a new administrator and guaranteed him 6 months of severance upon his leaving here for any reason except for malfeasance or malperformance. That to me is just, that's irresponsible with taxpayer money. That's a breach of your fiduciary duties to the taxpayers of this county, to waste our money and to promise away $40-some thousand like that. If that's true, you should be ashamed. That's despicable. You're so desperate to get somebody in who you think is going to be your whipping boy that John Hitt turned out to be, that you offer somebody a deal like this. To me, that's just unconscionable. I can't disagree with your decision to do it more than possible. Next, the last time I came here on April 4th, I made a rather unfavorable comment to yourself and Commissioner Huxley, who I notice won't even look at me. But, 2 days later, you accosted me at a public forum and in front of my wife accused me of being a liar. At the meet and greet, you walked up when we were sitting there eating, you walked up over the top of us, you looked down at me and said, "You lied what you said about me the other day." Okay? I challenged you. You didn't have a valid answer. This is a public forum. If I lied when I told you that you've done nothing to increase revenue in this county, right now, please explain to me what you have done that's increased or taken steps to increase revenue in this county. On the record is the proper place to have this discussion, not while I have a mouthful of food at a meet and greet at a public forum. So.
I'm not going to respond.
I didn't think you would. Speaks to your integrity, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on. County assessment function, the CAFTA grant. Jim Cullen.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to schedule this special meeting to deal with county assessment function funding assistance grant application. You've got our grant application for this year, and the application this year does include an amount of $125,000 to cover the Curry County pilot project, should that come to fruition.
So is that over and above the regular CAFTA grant?
That's over and above the regular assessment and taxation budget, yes.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to confirm that.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, I guess at this point, maybe I would look to see if you have any questions about the documents that.
Commissioner Huxley?
Assessor Cullen, if you would, for my benefit and hopefully for the benefit of others also, would you explain first on the memo, the cover memo, in the relevant facts? Just go through some of that again for maybe a brief. Well, let's say, I didn't say a brief history, but if you could just go through the facts, especially with some expansion on this possible pilot program. And it's interesting, it's called the Curry Pilot Project. With the newspaper, as far as the Curry Coastal Pilot, but no relationship whatsoever, I take. This is just a pilot project that's been called the Curry Pilot Project.
In the group that I've been working with, we've sort of loosely termed it the Curry Pilot Project, because the project would start in Curry County and may at some later time expand to other counties that are also having financial difficulties.
So we're the only one that would be involved in this if we were to get the grant?
We are initially, yes.
Okay.
But the relevant facts, we've applied for the CAFA grant each year since its inception. I believe that goes back to 1992. And we've qualified for the grant every year since its inception. The Department of Revenue has valid concerns about our current levels of funding for assessment and taxation. In their last acceptance letter for last year's grant, they included as part of their letter, and I'll quote their letter, "We recognize the significant financial challenges facing the county and the difficult choices that must be made. The assessment and taxation program remains at risk in virtually all functional areas due to low staffing levels. We will approve the county's participation in the 2017-18 CAFA grant based on discussions with the assessor that the county meets the minimum level of adequacy for the current fiscal year. We will continue to monitor the program over the course of the year in order to confirm adequacy in maintaining mandated functions."
So question, what do they consider as adequate?
Essentially, we have some physical reappraisal effort. That's we're looking at a portion of the county, and in that effort, as I've told you before, we're on about a 15 to 20 year cycle.
Right.
Where we would get around to see every property in the county. We are picking up all of the new construction that we're aware of, and again, building permits are our discovery tool for finding where there's new construction taking place in the county. We use the physical reappraisal as our discovery process for finding things that have taken place without building permits. And we're getting our ratio studies done, and we're turning the roll and collecting tax payments.
So they didn't give you a specific number of years that you had to have in your cycle to continue getting the CAFTA grants For instance, you're on a, what did you say, 16
15 to 20 year
15,
cycle.
20?
They did not know.
Okay. They just want to see
basically
improvements.
the law used to be counties had to be on a 6-year reappraisal cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And with the advent of measures 5 and 50, that law went by the wayside. And many counties have gotten away from that 6-year reappraisal cycle. There's still a few out there that have the funding that maintain a 6-year reappraisal cycle. I guess one of the things that we don't know until it happens is how far you can get behind and how much other construction you can miss out there if you're not on a regular reappraisal basis. And we've been able to identify some of that from those areas that we've worked. And I've shown you those statistics before. And if you'd like me to, I plan to bring those back up for the budget workshops.
Okay.
So if we get down to a 6-year, 6 year would be ideal, because essentially if you find a piece of property that had been built as much as 6 years ago, you can go back and collect all the deferred taxes on that, because that's what the law allows for. If you you can't go beyond that.
Oh, okay.
And so, if we're on a 15 to 20 year, and we can go back 6 years on a 20 year, we're losing 14 years for the districts. And just to clarify, this extra property would be picking up. I mean, it's property that you and I are already paying for on our own properties, because, we've seen everything most of us has. But there are people out there building homes without building permits. And other structures without building permits, and then are building other things that don't require building permits. I mean, such as asphalt or concrete driveways. Some decks don't require building permits. Small sheds don't require building permits. I believe probably most remodels would require a building permit, but that might be another example of the kind of thing that people don't get building permits for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another question, Commissioner Huxley?
Would you explain a little bit more? It's talking about this pilot project, and that's $125,000 is included in the numbers.
It is.
Okay. And it says this project goes before the Oregon E-Board in May. Would you explain a little bit the mechanics there? Who makes up the E-Board, and what's required to
I'd love to be able
approve
to
it?
explain that to you. What I can tell you is that our representative for our area plans to take this ask to the Oregon E-Board. I'm not sure what the makeup of that board is, but it's the Oregon Emergency Board, and they have the authority to approve, expenditures outside their normal budget process.
So this is clearly on the state level. Is this made up of members of the state legislature only?
That's
or?
my understanding,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay, I had another question. It was where we got into the FTEs, and I don't even know what page. It doesn't have a page number on it. But what happens is, says real property exceptions, subtotal, and previously the actual was 1529, and estimated by adding 0.2, it looks like FTEs, it would go up to 1940. Maybe I could show you, and you.
Does it say
Valuation and appraisal resources. That's the
just
top of
under
it.
the boxes which form number it is?
Form 4.
Okay. So, are you down on line 3, real property valuation?
Yes, down just subtotal there.
Right.
Okay, and I was just looking at it, and I thought, okay, you're going from 1529 up to 1940 by adding 0.2 FTEs. Is that correct?
Well,
Because you started, the actual FTEs was 1.4, and then estimated in 2018-19 is 1.6. Are you with me there?
I am
You're
with
up.
you.
Yeah, you're up in number one though, correct? On
Yeah, I'm
Form 4,
in
you're
number one, yeah,
I
one
am-
on the
I
subtotal.
am with you there.
Okay, so I just wondered how you came up with the 1940 coming up with, because I just did kind of a little proportion, and I came up with 1747 just by saying if you're working at the same rate, that's probably what it should
What I
be.
would say is that first section, real property exceptions, special assessments and exemptions, is one area of our
Right.
appraisal function, and that's where we're going to see the most minimal change as a result of having a portion of that 1.5 FTEs placed in there. But if you would go down, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth line, you can see special assessment qualification and disqualifications. Our actual
From 86 to 200?
Yeah, our actual number of accounts that we actually did disqualifications on last year was 86. We're going to put a little more resource on that, and we would expect to have as many as 200 disqualifications as part of this project.
So how did you arrive at that number? I'm just curious, because I just did a little couple of proportions, and I couldn't come up with the same numbers as you were coming up with. And there may be more to it than,
This is really just an estimate.
oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, if we're going from 0.1 FTEs to 0.3 FTEs, I suppose you could take that 86 number and triple it, but that may not work out as well either. So, I mean, I was trying to be conservative there by giving it
Okay, I was
200
just
number.
curious how you came up with the numbers. And I just did a little proportion to do
Yeah,
that. so.
we make estimates there every year, and we never hit it right on the nose, so.
Okay. Commissioner Huxley?
Where on these different forms, so it's easier just to reference to the form number to find out what page we're talking about. You said there's approximately, and this is a question, 23,000 properties, am I correct about?
Yes.
About how many do you, and where might it be shown on one of these forms, about how many of those 23,000 appraisals are made per year?
Okay.
And then to that, about how many are of that number is the increase, I assume, because of, in great part, based on the amounts of the grants and the number of people or individuals that you're able to add. Is that
Okay.
more or less?
If I understand your question, I think I do.
Okay.
Let's go back to Form 4, same
Form
page
4.
we were on.
Okay.
And that first section there, essentially, the first line under line number 1 is new construction. It's a big part of our current effort.
Okay.
And you'll see that this last year we visited 1,100 new construction accounts. And we're estimating that won't change much this year. So we're estimating 1,250 new construction accounts. And if you look over to the right under number of FTE by activity, what we're saying is there's about a full-time equivalent expended in picking up that 1,250 accounts.
Right, and that's not going to change, it looks like.
That's not going
Okay,
to
but you're
change.
going to expect that person to do more, is what I'm
Well,
saying.
now I'm going to take you down and show you where the big change is
Okay.
going to occur. Under category number 3, real property valuation, physical reappraisal,
Right,
you'll see that in the first column there, this year we picked up about 1,200 accounts. And next year we're planning to pick up an additional 1,250 accounts.
okay, so that's about double, and you've doubled your FTEs.
That's correct.
Okay,
I mean, there's some other minor changes on that form, but
well, that fits with a proportion that would, or close to it.
yes.
Okay. And I guess my main concern is with this grant money, that we do increase the appraisals and so forth, so that we can have more revenue coming in.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, so staying on those two line items, then basically between physical reappraisals and new construction, this actual year there were about 2,300, if I'm adding those two up.
Right.
And by adding one person, that's going from 2,300 to 3,700, I guess. Is that correct?
3,600.
Or 36,
Be a little closer
24,
to it, but
2450 and 10, 250 and 450, 550. That's 700. So 3,600, 3,700. By adding one full-time person, not that there are other parts of people individual for supporting other supporting
There is,
tasks
and I mean,
from
one of
that.
the, I mean, there are a couple of other small pickups that, I mean, we talked about the special assessments. There, you know, I mean, there's going to be
Yeah.
another 100 or so there.
But
We're going to expect that as a result of this, we're going to have more of a workload with omitted properties. Every time we find one of these properties that, say, has built a house without a permit, we go through an omitted property process to put it on the roll at that time and then go back for the additional 5 years.
So is that more time intensive to do that? I would
Yes.
think so.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, of course, you know, when people get those letters, there's some extra time involved in explaining what's going on there.
So, again, with new construction, and we call these appraisals also. Is that a fair for the terminology? Okay. And the physical reappraisals. About how many properties are appraised a year right now, and then about how many are we estimating for the 18-19 in this document?
Well, over the past few years, we've averaged probably 2,450 per year with our current staffing levels. I mean, what this shows you,
Okay.
from what we could make out for this last year, was that the actual amount is 1,300, or excuse me, 2,300. And then you see the increases that we're estimating once we get this extra resource. So did that answer your
Well,
question?
it's helping me here, but it's more than just one. Not much more than one, a little bit more than one full time, because there are other portions that are increased in the individuals going across. So it maybe might be
We're
closer
basically
to
figuring
one
that
and a half.
we're going to get out of this 1.5 new FTEs, we're going to get about 1.25 FTEs in appraisal resource.
Okay.
And then the other quarter of an FTE will be support.
So question, are they really, on this grant, are they really specific in how you can use that money, like the 0.25? Could the support person get into the appraisals, or is it very, very strict in the way they ask you to do it?
They don't follow it that closely. I mean,
Okay.
these are estimates, and they understand that they're estimates.
Okay, I didn't know how specific the
And
grant was.
we track them by the activity that actually occurred in the current year. I mean, in this case, 17-18, we keep track of the numbers of the activities that you can see there.
Commissioner Huxley?
Could you show me or direct us to which form would have the approximate amount of the CAFA request for this?
That's Form 7.
Okay, got it. And what would that, which column is that, or row or column, or?
The total request is the number at the bottom, and you're also going to see that number showing up on Form 8, which will be your resolution if you approve this.
So that's the $930,535?
We actually sent in a correction a day or so ago. The corrected amount is $948,405.
I guess I didn't put that in the right spot.
What exactly is that number?
That is
That's not the amount that you're going to receive on the grant.
no,
Correct.
no. That amount is the amount that Curry County will expend on these various assessment and taxation and distribution functions, which includes the assessor's office, tax collector's office, a portion of the treasurer for distribution. It includes the budget for the Board of Property Tax Appeals, and then IT, and there's also some administrative expenses written into that.
So it looks like basically your whole budget.
It is.
The newer number is 948, or is that the original number?
No, the newer number is 948,405.
Okay, so I X'd out the wrong one, but that's okay.
That's the number that I saw on your packet.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, we got
it's
two new
The
pages.
930,
Yeah.
the 930 and change has
Moot.
been
Gone.
is moot. Okay, but of the 950, call it, what is the net increase? What is the net result of this actual grant that includes the 125,000?
So are you asking what it was last year?
Well, what's it gonna be? What would it be approximately this year if you take this grant on the document as it exists? What's the net?
What we
Addition
would get from the CAFA
Correct.
grant?
That's correct.
We would get about 20% of that amount,
Okay, so
and that's an
Okay.
approximate number. They never land right on that 20% amount. But
so
I mean,
that's
an estimate.
so that's going to be about. So the
Here,
net,
let me
also-
just do that.
Which is also the reason that we want to include the pilot project in with this request, because now is the time to do it, and we will get 20% on that money as well. We can go back later.
So you get another 20 on the top of,
That's correct.
okay, so the amount that the CAFTA grant would be, close to it, would be 189,681, and then you're going to get another 20.
No. Excuse me. What we want, we will get approximately 20% back on what we certify as the expenditure for assessment and tax collection. That $125,000 is included in this $948,000 expenditure
okay.
amount.
Okay.
so that's going to be, call it 190,000, a ballpark, which is 20% of the.
I did 20% of the 948,000.
So that's 100.
That's the 20% we want to look at. Yes.
That's
Right.
190,000 about.
Approximately, yeah.
So if and that includes, that includes the 125,000.
That's
That in this
in the expenditure amount.
Correct.
Yes.
So if that's not successful, it said you have to go back and revise your
I'll come
request.
back to you again, yes.
But ultimately, the net request, regardless of where it's coming from, is going to be about 190,000. Correct?
But if we have to go back and take out that 125,000, then we won't get 20%.
Be a little bit.
So 20% of 125,000 is what, $25,000.
So it would be
So
less
it would
20,
be-
less 20.
Yeah,
less,
what,
okay.
165,000.
So without the 125.
We're putting you on the spot here
And
today.
that, well, no, I'm just to try and understand it more. Okay, the net would be then about
He
100,
came up with some good questions last year too.
165. Okay. And I think last year, or they had been running somewhere between 150 and 200 ballpark
Okay.
per recent years, I think, when we spoke. On
Then your
somewhere around.
memory is a little clearer
I don't have
than mine
the
from last
numbers,
year,
but
but-
okay. Okay, so but this year, with the numbers that we're just talking about here, the way that you're planning to distribute the personnel to do these different evaluations or appraisals is going to significantly increase by, I don't know, what did we say, from 2450 to 36 or 3700, you know, almost 50% increase the number of appraisals, either new
Yes.
construction or
That's the
reappraisals,
intent, yeah.
with almost the same amount from previous years. And if we were to take for this 15 to 20 year cycle, that would be taking 20, I'm trying to figure out how we get that, because you said there's 23,000 properties about. If for this last year, between new construction and physical reappraisals, there's been 2450. If you take 23,000, let's call it 24,000
Could I
and 24.
Could I
Yeah.
stop you there
Oh,
real quick?
please.
Because you're using not the same numbers I would be using.
Okay,
So I'm going to go back to form number 4.
okay,
And really with this, what we're now talking about is just the reappraisal effort. We're not talking about anything that's up there in section 1, which was the new construction. Where we're increasing is our reappraisal effort, and we're just about doubling that.
That's in section 3,
okay,
right?
so we
Correct.
only take that.
Really, so we're taking the total
Understood.
number of accounts and you divide it by the 1250 and you get a certain number of years. I think it's just over 15. And then you divide it by the 2450 and you come up with a number that's, I think, just over 7.
Oh,
Well, yeah, it was 19 years if you took 23,000 divided by 1,200.
Well,
19.
part of the thing that I spoke to you about, but I haven't identified here, is some of those 23,000 accounts are exempt from taxation and we don't appraise them
Okay.
for the most part. Occasionally we'll get a county-owned property that somebody asks to be put up for auction and we'll do an appraisal on those.
okay, so by increasing it to 2450, you're going to be able to come down to about a 7-year cycle.
Yes.
Okay, that's certainly better than where we're at.
And over time, like I mentioned to you before, we would expect that the unpermitted property value out there that we'll collect after, say, 7 years would be anywhere from 3 to 5 times what the annual expense is.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Do you have any questions, Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick clarification. I thought I read the assessor column say they're averaging about 2,400 inspections / appraisals a year. That would be 200 a month. Is that correct? And considering the staffing levels, that's not too bad.
Yeah, that's correct. And I don't want the commissioners to confuse what the assessor's office does, mass appraisal, as confusing it with what a fee appraiser would do for your mortgage.
Oh, yeah,
I
it's
mean, they
different.
put a lot more work into it. We, just by the nature of our business, are moving quite a bit quicker than a fee appraiser.
Well, and not only that, a lot of homeowners will not allow you in the house. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well,
Maybe I'm...
not only that, I mean, we don't make appointments and we knock on a door. If they're not there, we're not getting in the house anyway.
Okay. So just another question, what % of the appraisals you do allow you to get in the house? Just a ballpark.
25, 30% maybe.
Okay.
But for the most part, you can tell what you're dealing with from the outside of a house.
Okay. Any other questions? So I think we need a motion to approve the CAFTA grant.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Do we have a second?
I would second, and that's with the 2 revised pages that were supplemental.
So I'm hoping what the motion is that you're moving, Council Huddle, you'll have to correct me on this, but that they're moving to approve the resolution.
The resolution.
That is Form 8.
Right.
That shows a total expenditure of $948,405 for the 2018-19 CAFA grant application.
I'm sure that's what Commissioner Boyce stated. Is that correct, Commissioner Boyce?
That is correct, thank you.
Okay, and you second?
Yes.
Okay, call for the question.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thanks for the explanations, too.
Good questions.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the Curry County Code Coordination with Federal Agencies. Commissioner Boyce, I think you were listed on the agenda as bringing this up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed a letter from North County resident Tim Palmer. I'm not understanding what his concern is. Maybe somebody could help me there. This has been before public already, and it's a simple matter, as you know.
JJ, did we get a letter from Tim Palmer? Did we get a letter from Tim Palmer?
And they just, the Board of Commissioners at that point, Susan Brown, David Blacksmith, and David Dixon, I think it just simply got overlooked, and so it's our responsibility to follow through. It's very important. Should we have another fire, another sinkhole? Let's just let the citizens know that we're on the ball, we're watching close. As elected officials, our responsibility is to be engaged. So I think that's what we're trying to clarify here, and certainly we can have it open for discussion.
Commissioner Huxley?
Okay, I think to respond to your question about Tim Palmer's comments, I think I understood his comments because initially this subject was listed under a workshop to begin this morning at 10 a.m. And because that was the only item, in which case you cannot make a decision, the board cannot make a decision during a workshop. It was moved not to the objective was not to move it so that there could be a decision. The objective was to move it to under the special meeting because there was nothing else in the workshop, and it would have been basically having Brant Media come here at 10 o'clock this morning to begin the video of the meeting, and then to go probably 10 or 15 minutes, which is what this was scheduled to run, and then sit and wait for several hours until the 1:30 meeting. So I think that that's an explanation more to Mr. Palmer as far as why it's now listed under the special meeting. But I don't think the intent in doing that was so that we could, this board to make a decision, any decision on this topic today. It was just
that was my understanding as well.
Any comments or explanation. So,
Well, if I may.
okay. Yes.
Commissioner Boyce?
Well, we already made a decision on this. It's just to properly inventory the state and federal agencies that need to be notified. So I thought that's why we put this under the category of special meeting, so we could make a decision. I don't think we need any additional, especially with the fire season coming up. So I don't sense anything or any reason for delay here. And I do appreciate Commissioner Huxley's explanation. I think he's probably correct in that. I didn't pick up on that, however.
Council Huddle?
Thanks, Commissioner Boyce. So I had John Jesuit do a little examination into the history of this item. Since I think Commissioner Boyce bringing it to our attention is appropriate, this policy, or actually it's an ordinance, has been in our books, I think, since 2013-ish. And the two paragraphs I think that Commissioner Boyce highlighted were that upon adoption of this ordinance, the county will issue letters seeking coordination with these federal agencies. And we could not find where that was done. And I think what Commissioner Boyce is saying is we don't necessarily need to take action. There's already the direction for staff to do it. And to me, it would fall on BOC office staff and the county administrator to, at least if nothing else, draft these letters to the named agencies. I also had John Jesuit check with other counties to make sure if they're doing these things, that we would be, following at least the industry standards. So, Commissioner Boyce, if I'm understanding, your reason for bringing this to the board's attention was just to basically not let this fall through the cracks any more than it already has, and to make sure that the staff is doing what the board asked them to do all those years ago. Is that correct?
Well, yes, I thought that we had discussed this, one of our, I believe the general meeting, second back. And so it's an important housekeeping matter. And I didn't think about contacting the other counties. I think that's an excellent idea. I appreciate that you put staff on this. And it's not, if I understand any apprehension here, it's that the county, I think Mr. Palmer's position, I've been hearing him testify publicly in the past, is that the commissioners should stick to their job. Well, I understand and respect his opinion. As elected officials, we have a very substantial responsibility to, especially after the fire of the sinkhole, the tsunami. So this is just saying, this is basically, I think, an opportunity to reach to the managing agencies and saying, we're not demanding a say, but we will be able to look our citizens in the eyes and say, yes, we understand our responsibility. We're going to be there, and we're going to work very hard to build relationships with the state and federal agencies. And the more people sit at the table, the better the outcome generally accepted would be. Thank you.
So what I'm understanding, Commissioner Boyce, is that you want us to send letters out to these agencies, or what exactly, or let them know that we have this ordinance on the books? Is that what you want, or I'm just confused?
Well, if you go back to the 2013 resolution, that's pretty clearly defined on what our responsibility is to simply notify. That can be through email, it can be through personal contact, it can be through letters. I don't think it's confusing. I think that if we can direct staff to continue the path they're on as far as seeing what other counties do, that might give us some excellent insight and assure the board and the citizens that we're taking following the proper procedures here. Does that make sense? I'm not really thrilled with, and in fact concerned with unnecessary delays. But I'm willing to work and be flexible in the interest of doing this right. Thank you.
Council Huddle?
Right. So, Madam Chair, and the requirement for coordination is found in several federal laws, and I believe the board's adoption back in 2013, I wasn't here, but I've seen this in other places. I think the board's motivation or what have you, and the federal statutes that require the federal governments to coordinate with us when they're going to take actions that concern us, there's a requirement. And I think what was happening is there was a sense back in the early 2000s that the federal government wasn't necessarily being proactive or some other word, but they weren't really following what the local counties and the local governments and the local jurisdictions that the federal laws are requiring them to coordinate with, that they weren't doing that. So a lot of local jurisdictions said, well, we'll be proactive and at least make sure we notify them that we want to coordinate with them. So really, it's a product of the existing federal laws, and it's a responsible thing for the county to just say, listen, you have these duties to coordinate with us. Here's how to contact us. Please coordinate with us. It's really just a matter of being on record as letting the federal agencies know that we want to communicate with them. And I think, again, what Commissioner Boyce is saying is this is a pre-existing county rule, but we couldn't find where we've done this, and I think to his credit, he's saying we should do what we said we were going to do. And
well, and I really don't have a problem with that,
okay.
notifying them that we're interested in working with them on issues that involve our county. So is that basically what you're saying, Commissioner Boyce? Is that what you want us to do?
Well, yes, and thank you. If you use the Czechoslovakia fire, for example, they were delayed in properly responding to us as a county. They're required by law to do that. I think the chain of command is for the sheriff first and the county commissioners, and I just hold that in a very high degree of responsibility. And so, yeah, I think you have it correct, Mr. Cove. The thing is, and this is no small thing, we're the elected officials here. So when we're dealing with different bureaucracy, that's why the law is set up to protect the smaller communities to be heard. Doesn't mean they're going to throw their weight around or anything like that, but it is a serious responsibility we have, and we have plenty of examples in our county that demonstrate when we should have been available. Thank you.
Commissioner Huxley?
There's a question for County Council. When you mentioned County Council that had the staff do some checking and they were not able to find any documentation or letters to, where was that referenced, or what section on this were you seeing where that was a requirement, so I can get to that page?
Let me pull up my materials here. My computer is thinking.
I was looking there, just a little audio report here. Everybody's coming in quite well. I hope my volume is okay, and just let Charles know that whatever fine-tuning he and John Jesuit have been doing is quite good. Thank you.
Is it here where the highlighting? Page 3?
I think it is, and so that would show up in your agenda packet on page 20 of your agenda pack. It's section 1.14.020, overarching policies, and then coordination agreement is subsection 2. Curry County will transmit a formal request to initiate immediate and ongoing coordination with federal agencies that the Curry County Board of Commissioners find conduct activities in or that may affect Curry County. So this is, again, page 20 of your agenda pack. It's
page 3 of the ordinance.
Page 3. It's section 1.14.020, subsection 2A, and then it says in its transmittal requesting coordination. So it says, and so when it said formal, that's where I anticipated that we send a letter, and then this lists a number of federal agencies that we should be sending these requests to initiate coordination with, ongoing coordination. So that's really, and again, I think this has been a directive from the board on the books for, again, since probably before each one of our time here, but it doesn't mean it's not still good or that we shouldn't do it. I think Commissioner Boyce is just trying to bring it to our attention that we should probably follow through on this.
Mainly, I'm just going to get to the bottom line, a request to these federal agencies to let them know that we are interested when something affects our county for us to be involved in possibly the decision making.
Right, and again, my understanding is that under certain federal laws, they have a duty to coordinate with us, and just
kind of a reminder to them.
Right, and
I think that's well said, and in particular, it has to do with public safety issues, and that comes under our catchment.
Okay. So really, that's all we had on this item for the work session, and so if there's nothing further, I think staff will get to work on putting together those communications.
That's fine. It looks like it's already a done deal, actually.
Well,
Just
except
wasn't carried through.
Happened. It was
Right.
done, but it wasn't.
I think it was directed, but then there wasn't follow-up or follow-up to the follow-up. So Commissioner Boyce, again, is reminding us of some things we can be doing.
So I would say we are not in need of a motion because
It's already been directed,
Already
yeah,
been
but it's
directed.
just, and again, this is just a workshop. We're just letting you know this is an item
No, this is a
that we're
special
going to be
meeting.
working on. Well, you're right, it is a special meeting. Thanks, Commissioner Gold. That's all we had on that item, and then it says adjourn, but I'd asked to put in a few announcements if that's okay.
we're not quite
Oh,
finished.
sorry.
We've got
You're
the
right.
Port Orford.
You're right, I forgot we
grant.
added Mr. Calvanese, excuse me.
Do you want to step up and tell us about your letter? And identify yourself so you can be on.
Excuse me. Thank you. My name is Tom Calvanese. I'm the president of the Port Commission in Port Orford. And I appreciate you making time on your agenda to consider our request for a letter of support for a grant proposal we are in the process of submitting to the Regional Infrastructure Fund through Business Oregon in support of a redevelopment project that is now underway at the Port of Port Orford. Appreciate you making the time because the deadline for the proposal submission is April 30th, which is Monday. And so this was the opportunity we had. So thank you again for making time.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the grant so we can
Tell the public perhaps about the grant.
tell the
Yes,
public?
yes, I'd be happy to. So this grant will be in support of a larger, this will be part of the funding for a project that is now estimated to be in the neighborhood of $6.8 million. That will be a comprehensive upgrade to the port's infrastructure, focusing on the development of a port-owned and operated seawater system to support businesses that require that essentially as a utility, let's say. That includes right now, we have live seafood buyers who purchase live fish and other sea creatures from fishermen, and those live fish are taken all the way to market. The value of that is that those products are high value products. Just for example, the same species of fish when dead might fetch 60 cents to $1 a pound for the fisherman, but if it's kept alive, it could fetch $6 to $7 a pound. So that has all kinds of interesting implications for the small business fisherman, for the buyer, for the consumer, and for the port's bottom line. So we do support that, and Port Orford, the Port Orford fleet as a whole holds more than half of the nearshore permits, and the bulk of those landings are in the live fish fishery. So we are sort of the epicenter for that fishery in Oregon, and one of the epicenters on the West Coast. Many of those fish actually get transported to live fish markets in the San Francisco Bay Area and thereabouts.
So how do they keep them alive all the way to San Francisco? Someone have a boat with lots of water in it, or?
They are kept in tanks full of seawater.
Ah,
Therefore, the need for that seawater. Port Orford is uniquely positioned because of our location directly on the open ocean to provide full-strength seawater, which is a utility or an asset that very few other ports can provide. So knowing this, we see value in developing that asset. Another project that has more recently emerged just in the last couple of years, you may have become aware of an edible seaweed called dulse. It's a red algae that was developed by Dr. Chris Langton at the Hatfield Marine Science Center, initially as a food, as a feed for an abalone farm, which it currently is being used for in Hawaii. But since then, it has actually emerged as a product that's a high-value product for human consumption, both for its nutritional value and the ease of cultivation. We began to cultivate, or a company rather called Oregon Sea Farms began to cultivate that algae in Port Orford on the dock 2 years ago, and has since expanded that operation and is looking to expand it further. That same operation processes red sea urchins, which is another product that is focused very much in Port Orford. It's essentially at this point an artisanal fishery. A single boat harvests almost all the urchins in Oregon, and many of them come from Orford Reef just off Cape Blanco. Those products have been processed in Fort Bragg until just recently, and that outfit is now looking to bring some of that processing back to Port Orford and provide live product and processing jobs as part of this new project. We've now been approached by a handful of other interested parties. In fact, a new buyer is now, as right today, is setting up an additional buying station in Port Orford to purchase live product from fishermen: crab, live fish, tuna, salmon, and black cod. So as these kind of projects sometimes go, word of mouth travels pretty fast. Once people realize that new sort of opportunity is emerging, the port is being approached by a number of outfits that are particularly interested in the access to that asset. And we are, excuse me, I also work for Oregon State University as the station manager for the OSU Port Orford Field Station, which is part of the Marine Studies Initiative that OSU is rolling out coast-wide right now. And so we are consulting with the technicians at the Hatfield Marine Science Center to inform the Port of Port Orford on the best approach to executing this kind of this scale of a seawater system. And their technicians are particularly interested in the fact that we have the location that we have. And of course, there's interest on the part of the university in terms of education and research uses of the seawater as well, particularly around issues that are emerging now concerning ocean acidification, domoic acid, and other challenges that are emerging now in terms of our marine environment.
Sounds like some interesting things are going on at Port Orford. Any questions from the commissioners? I got to talk to this young man earlier. And yes, Commissioner Boyce?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Calvinese, just I hear the job you're doing there. You've got an excellent board, and just the effectiveness and the work you're getting done is really serving source of pride for our county. Thank you for showing up today as well.
Okay.
So I'm looking for a motion to put together a letter of support for the Port Orford Rural Infrastructure Finance Grant. Do I have that motion?
And there should be the letter in your
Yeah,
packet,
good.
and it would just be to approve your signature on that letter, Madam
Okay.
Chair. There was some supplemental materials.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay,
Down
very
here.
good, very good.
So do we have a motion to approve the letter?
I would motion to approve the draft letter that they presented for signature.
A second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Call for the question.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank
Now,
Thank you very
Council
much.
Huddle, you're welcome. Council Huddle, I think you had some announcements.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Chair. So some things have come across my desk. Some of these have been posted on the county's website. For instance, regarding the recovery, or it's called Coos Curry County's Emergency Forest Restoration Program. It's from the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service. And what it says is Farm Service Agency offering Chetco Bar Fire assistance in Coos and Curry counties. And it says owners of non-industrial private forest lands damaged by the Chetco Bar Fire between July 12th and November 4th, 2017 may be eligible. Sign up by Friday, June 1, 2018. The program may provide assistance with debris and dead tree removal, temporary soil cover, timber replanting, wildlife enhancements, seeding, fire breaks, herbicides as necessary in an approved planting plan, tree protection devices as necessary in an approved planting plan, roads located on non-industrial private forest land as deemed necessary for restoration. If you believe you are eligible, please contact Brett Harris, FSA, County Executive Director, 541-396-4323, extension 2, or Brett, B-R-E-T, Harris, Harris, @or.usda.gov. or.gov. That's Brett, B-R-E-T, that's 1T, Harris at or.usda.gov. Again, sign up by Friday, June 1, 2018. So that was very interesting. I believe that information is posted as a link on our website for people. Yesterday, I received a media announcement from Captain Mick Espinosa, and it said that we were experiencing, our 911 center was experiencing an inability to receive and respond to 911 cell phone calls from Verizon Wireless. This media release says that they are working on a solution, and they say that if you cannot reach 911 emergency center via 911, you can contact the regular sheriff business line. There's 2 lines to reach, 541-247-3242 or 541-247-3243 using Verizon Wireless. So those are, again, alternatives if you're having difficulty with Verizon Wireless 911 service and perhaps any other 911 services. It's taken care of. Very good. That's interesting because I did not get a companion media release saying it was all taken care of.
Actually,
So
we got an email.
We did.
A few minutes before we came into this
A few
meeting.
minutes before coming into the meeting.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. So this announcement is for anyone who didn't get the email today saying that this has been resolved. Nevertheless, if you're ever having trouble getting through to 911, you can call the sheriff's non-emergency number at 541-247-3242. And then there's one others on Friday, April 28th. Saturday, excuse me. Thank you, John Jesuit. Saturday, April 28th, the Curry County Sheriff's Department is participating in the National Prescription Drug Take-Back Program, April 28, 2018. So you can drop off from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Curry County Sheriff's Office any unwanted prescription drugs. I've also heard, and that what this says is last fall, Americans turned in 456 tons of prescription drugs at more than 5,300 sites operated by the DEA and 4,300 of its state and local law enforcement partners. So this is a national event, but when I talk to our sheriff's department, I believe if you ever want to turn in unwanted or unused prescription drugs, they will take those off your hands at any time. But this is a national program to get awareness out. So those are the only other announcements I had, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, and thanks to the members of the audience for helping out on that first announcement.
Okay, thank you. And he's right about taking your unwanted drugs to the sheriff's department. I did that when my mother passed.
And you didn't have to have it on a particular day. It can be on. Yep. That's what.
Fine.
Yeah, that was my question. So for the sheriff, and they said this is just a program with the DEA, but at any time. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Okay, I don't think we have anything else on the agenda, so this meeting's adjourned. Thank you for coming.